Hey guys, so welcome to another episode of the show. Now, if you're watching this interview anywhere else but within our private community called High Ticket Client Attraction Insider Circle, be sure to come join us. That group was put together specifically for our coaches, consultants, service providers who are serious about growing a successful coaching consult business and getting up to that 6 and 7 figure level. So if that's you, be sure to come join us. We definitely love to have you. Now, with that being said, I have a friend here today who I want to introduce you to. He goes by the name Nic Fitzgerald. Welcome, Nick.
Hey, thanks for having me, Extus. It's good to be here.
Awesome. You're welcome. You're welcome, man. We are just chatting about how we met through a Facebook group and talking about how big the world really is when you look online. But then when it comes down, you realize, like, man, people are just right next door in a sense. It's just a click away, right?
Exactly. It's pretty crazy how we can connect with anyone, anywhere, with just a couple of clicks in this great big digital world, especially that we're playing in these days.
Yeah, definitely. And I was checking out some of your profiles. So I guess tell us a bit about what it is that you do.
Yeah. So, I'm a husband, father, best-selling author, entrepreneur, and most importantly, like all those things are important, but like I'm a storytelling marketer. I help entrepreneurs and businesses leverage their stories and experiences to sell more of their products and services through awesome cinematic videos, Facebook Lives, and visual media. And I do it to help build connections through a storytelling framework that I've developed through working on feature films and TV and commercials and news, all those fun things in Hollywood. And then my lifelong passion of story and how it connects us. And so that's a overview of who I am and what I do, for sure.
Yeah, lovely, man. Now, storytelling, that's fascinating because it seems like that's what you lead with, right? And how did you get into storytelling? What's your backstory with storytelling?
Yeah. So, for those that can see the video, like my background, I've got a bunch of Star Wars stuff and toys and everything. Like ever since I was a kid, just story was an opportunity for me to be able to escape. I'm really tall. I'm 6'9". When I was in sixth grade, I was 6 feet tall. I've always been really tall, and it brought a lot of unwanted attention to me and made things, I just didn't like it. So I found stories as a way to escape from, stresses and being teased and things like that as a kid. But as I grew up and went through going through dating in high school, I learned that building relationships was all stories. It was me sharing my interests and listening to somebody else's interests. And then we decide if we want to go the next step or on another date or those kinds of things. And I really started to see how the way that we really can connect with people is through the stories that we share. And then, going on as I progressed into adulthood, I played semi-professional basketball and had a Division I college scholarship, all those things. But as I worked in corporate America, I saw how, stories are how I connected with my clients, how I was able to build trust and get them to, tell me about their goals and their dreams so that I could put them in the products and vehicles in order to get them there. I worked as a financial advisor, and there's no way that I could get a complete stranger to tell me that they had $1 million in an old account that was just sitting there without having some trust. And I built that trust through asking them questions, hearing their stories, sharing some of mine, right? And then as I've transitioned to, understanding marketing and using it specifically in sales with business, I've seen how storytelling makes people millions and billions of dollars with their businesses. And then I spent, back in 2015, I started my own company, but then I freelanced and I worked on 13 feature films and 2 television series and lots of commercials. And so I saw how stories were crafted in a very intentional way to get a result at the box office, to make back an investment, to sell a product, or to tell a story on a news program and stuff. And so story for me has just, I always say that humanity is storytelling. It's what civilizations are built and destroyed based on legends and stories and all that kind of stuff all throughout history. And as I've seen it work in all those different ways in my own personal life, and then as I started applying it to my business, it just really started to grow. It helped me make more money by serving people with my skills, but then I also am able to use it to help other people make more money in their business. And so it's so fun to be able to get to know people and hear their passions and what drives them and why they're doing what they're doing, and help them convey it to their audience or the people that they're trying to sell to in their business, to be able to achieve that and give them results too. So that's kind of where it all started and how it progressed throughout it's a whole life worth of study and obsession and living it. So.
Hmm. Okay, perfect. So you hit on two big things. I realized because I started this kind of interview show last week. So I think since I started about maybe 7 days ago, I probably did about maybe 25 different interviews. So I'm really cranking away, right?
Right.
But one of the things I realized as I talk to different individuals, I realized two common things I've noticed with really successful people, including yourself, is they've figured it out, because they've realized somewhere along the way, they realize stories are really the key to success. And second, relationships, actually getting conversations started with people and exploring where these conversations go. That is so powerful. Now, in terms of, have you heard of the book Tell to Win by Peter Gruber? Have you ever heard of that?
I've heard of it. I haven't read it, but I've
Yeah,
definitely heard of it. Yeah.
that's amazing. But that's really when I kind of stumbled upon storytelling, because I remember that book. I was actually in Brazil walking. I used to work at the embassy, the U.S. embassy, and it was about maybe a 20-minute walk. And I always used to get these audiobooks and put it on my iPod and just walk to the embassy. And that's a book I remember playing while I was walking down to the embassy. I remember putting it on my iPod walking down. And when I hit the play button, it was like, the end. And that's kind of how the book started off. It was like, the end, like, what's going on? Did I fast forward this thing? Like, what's happening? But he's just such a good storyteller, and that entire book, Tell to Win, just documents his entire journey of how he used story to create a whole bunch of success in his life. And that's when I realized, like, man, story is so powerful. And it's so amazing to run into you, because now you've kind of built you've seen that, and now you don't only use it for yourself to become successful, but you now help others do it for themselves as well too, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And it's a lot of fun to be able to see, you know, how it can, when done intentionally
Hmm.
and with a purpose behind it, like the results are amazing when you really craft a story in order to take take the audience on a journey and to invite them on the journey with you.
Hmm.
And it just, like, I love how that book started with the end, because that's one of the first things I teach people is like, begin with the end in mind. What is the purpose of this story? You
Hmm.
know, because without an intention and a purpose, especially as entrepreneurs and coaches and service providers, like, we have to be intentional in everything that we do from the moment we wake up till the time we go to bed. And when we're putting our message out there, it has to have that intent and purpose behind it. Otherwise, it's a waste of our time and our money or our
Hmm.
resources, and also on the back end, if it's just a waffling, warbling story that goes nowhere, the people who sat through it are going to be like, oh, why did I sit through that? That was a waste of my time too, right? So
Yes. And I see it so often too, because with the coaches, consultants, service providers, we have a lot of individuals reach out to us, like wanting help in growing the business and different things. And one of the biggest objections I hear, because I see a lot of coaches, consultants, one of the biggest objections is, I don't know if I'm good enough, or I'm not sure if what I have to offer is going to be good enough. And most of those individuals I realize who have that, come from that frame, they come from more of a kind of like either a technique or something that they're trying to offer, bring out to the world, versus, and what we have them see is like, that's, the technique is good. It's good that you have a process, but what's the story behind it? Once we could figure out your story, and that's how once you could figure out your own personal story, that's what kind of separates you from everyone else. Because although you might be doing something similar to what someone else is doing, your story is different, and that's what's going to give you the unfair advantage over everyone else out there. So tell me, how do you take someone through crafting the story? How does, like, what does working with you look like in that process then?
yeah. So for me, you know, I have a framework that I've developed that helps people, like, because like you said, so many people that I talk with as well fall into one or two categories. They're like, I'm kind of boring, or I'm not very interesting. I don't have a story to tell. Is anybody going to care? You know, that kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
Or they've had a life full of experience, but they just don't know where to begin and what to share versus what not to share, you know, all these things. And so I have a framework that I walk people through. When I work with people individually, you know, we go more in depth to it, but it's a 9-step framework that I can just quickly go through here so you can kind of see and think about the process.
Ryan.
But again, like, Step number one is beginning with the end in mind. What is the purpose of the story, right? Is it to tell the story of, or identifying the purpose, you ask yourself, what do I want the audience to feel, think, and do as a result of this story? What emotions do I want to stir up? What thought process do I want to engage? And what action do I want them to take at the end? And when you think of it that way, the path kind of reveals itself and you work backwards, because now you can think of your experiences and your stories and the things that you've seen that you can share that will lead to that outcome. Okay, so that's step one, is just like setting that intention and the purpose to the story. But step two is, talks about structuring of the story. Every story has three simple things. It's a beginning, a middle, and an end. And everyone always chuckles when I say it because it's so simple, but every great story does very specific things in all three of those areas that really suck the audience in, help them build that connection to you as the hero of that story that you're sharing and stuff. So step three is all about, starts to build some of these components in the beginning, middle, and end, but like introducing the conflict early. Every great story has a conflict of some sort. You started your business, you became a coach, a consultant, or a service person, and there's a reason why you did it. There was conflict or something that made you choose that as a vocation and as a career path. So when you introduce that conflict into your story early, you don't start with when you were born or 30 years ago and things that aren't pertinent to the story. You start with where the conflict came into your life that started you on this journey of the story that you're telling, right? And what that does is it builds up an emotional response in the audience. And when you can build up and stir up the emotion, especially quickly and early, it helps them buy in and side with you and want to follow you and join you on the journey, right? Then step number 4 is all about introducing the key characters. You're the hero of your story and where you're at in your business, but there were other people involved in it. You had a support system, friends, colleagues, whatever it might be, a spouse or partner, former coworkers, you're the bad guys in the story. It might be a government entity or a global pandemic like we're experiencing with the COVID-19 stuff that's happening right now. And when you do that, again, it just gives more perspective for your audience to be able to see you through attracts more and more diverse kind of audience base, because they can see you through other people's perspective.
Right.
Step number 5 is all about naming an enemy. Every conflict comes to us through somebody or something, and so we need to name that enemy and identify it and call it out, because when we draw that line in the sand, again, the audience makes a decision who they're going to follow. If they're not going to follow you or go against you, then you don't want to be attracting and working with those kinds of people anyway, so it will repel those. But then the people who side with you or choose to follow you or join and come on that journey with you, it just gives so much more emotional buy-in, and they want you to succeed as they go on that journey and see you attack the conflict. And then step number 6 is all about raising the stakes. When we raise the stakes, we make the conflict become more complex, and our success, there's so much more riding on our success. I use Star Wars as an example when I teach it. Like at the beginning of Star Wars A New Hope, episode 4, like we learned that it's a period of civil war, but then we learned that there's the Empire, and then the Empire like destroys a planet, and then they attack the rebels, and we see the conflict throughout that story become more and more complex. Even though it's the same bad guy, the stakes are continually raised through the story. And when we do that, again, when we are able to increase the conflict, it creates an emotional response. And when we are able to build emotional responses and reactions, especially connecting them to our business, the emotional side is like the subconscious's way of telling the conscious mind what it wants to do. And so when it comes time to invite them to become a client or buy your product or service, because they have that emotional connection, it just makes things easier to say yes when the time comes. And then step number 7 is all about being detailed, just sharing the sights and smells and emotions and the people that we're around. When you do that, again, just creates more contact points between you and the audience and your story. And when they create that new experience with you, then that becomes another cherished memory, or a memory that sticks with them far longer than any fact or figure or statistic ever would.
Mm-hmm.
And step 8 is all about being genuine. Don't fake it till you make it. Like, tell the truth in your stories. Don't fabricate stuff, or in order to get people to like you or whatever it is that you want, or feel like you have to cry on camera, because the truth comes out eventually. And usually when you're not being genuine, it doesn't translate through the camera or to the audience very well. They can see through it very quickly.
Right.
And the last step is the most important. If you don't do this, all the other steps are completely worthless, and it's do it now. Don't wait. Like, tell your story now, instead of waiting until you have 5,000 followers, or you have $1 million in the bank, or you feel like you're, like Tony Robbins. You don't have to be Tony Robbins or Oprah Winfrey in order to share your story and have impact and stuff now.
Mm-hmm.
So that's the last step, is just take action and start sharing it now, because there are people searching for your voice right now that you can help and serve right now, regardless of what your audience size is. But as you continue to do it, you get better and better and better at your storytelling, and you'll be attracting and making adjustments so that it really connects with a lot of people as you continue to grow. So that's the basic overview of like the framework that I like to run people through when we're working on a story. And of course, we go a lot deeper into all these different things when we're working into one-on-one and stuff. But that's just kind of like a little guide of things to think of when it comes to telling story through your business.
Yeah, that is so powerful. And that's something as I was on my journey as well too, that's the one thing I did. I actually wrote out my full entire story. I think right now it's about maybe 14 pages, but I kind of started off from basically from the day I was born, as far as back as I could remember, all the way up until now.
Mm-hmm.
And what I realized is, like I heard you say, like, you don't, it depends on what you're offering or what you're selling. That's going to determine which pieces of your story you tell. I realized with most individuals who do try to get into telling their stories and stuff like that, either they tell pieces of the story that are just so irrelevant. It's like, oh, where are we going again? Like, why are you telling me this again? And then there's others who they don't share as much. They share very, very little. But I think the fine point in getting into a place where you could share, like, because I believe that a story, the core of what it is, it's meeting your prospect, especially with coaches and consultants, because I know most of them, what they're trying to do is say, how do I get someone to use my experience to hire me for my experience? I could take them, help them get the results. And if you could think about when you go through in terms of whether it's crafting your story or whatever, if you could think in terms of, okay, here's where I'm at right now, but where's my prospect at? And how can I use elements of my story to kind of show them that I've been where they're at, but not just that, but I've kind of went on this journey and I've got to the end result, kind of like the hero's journey in a sense. I think that's so brilliant. And for you, you've spent your entire as you help individuals. Sorry, man, that is so cool. I mean, I'm so excited because I really want to share this with a lot of my community, because I just know that if anything you just shared, if someone could take hint of what you just shared, then actually apply it, which is go to work on their story. That's going to change the game for them. So in terms of the resources, you just like walked us through like 7 steps. Or do you have any type of a resource or something that someone could download to get those?
Yeah.
How would that? How does that work?
Yeah, I actually have this framework in a PDF. It explains it a little bit more in detail. And you can get that for free at friendlygiantfilms.com. It's 13 pages, with some just walking through and describing why each step is important. Because I know that, I've have coaches and stuff that I pay and have invested with. And you hear a lot of the gurus and coaches telling you that you need to be telling your story or publishing, all these different things. But there's a disconnect, there's a gap between what they're teaching you with your business. They don't have the time or the resources or whatnot to be able to spend a lot of time on the storytelling aspect of it. So I know there's a gap that a lot of people that, are like, okay, what am I supposed to do to tell my story? How do I get started? That kind of stuff. And that's what this framework is all designed to help people like understand. Okay, yes, I need to tell my story and be vocal and intentional in my messaging and my marketing. But what do I need to do to be able to tell that story well? So like that's what this framework is all about, to be able to give you just these simple steps to start looking at your experiences and the things that you're doing and start intentionally crafting them and start to see the structure of how stories work. And so, yeah, that's a totally free resource that I love to offer to people, that they can just get started in starting to understand and think about their story that way. And then I have other things like down the line that are more, we go more in depth with stuff, or, like work together on really fleshing some things out so that you can truly build it if you get stuck. A lot of people are needing to figure things out on their own and do it themselves. And this is the first step in helping you really take action on how to actually do it, as opposed to just being told, you should do it, go and, I'm one of those. I tell everyone they need to be telling their story as well, but this is actually shows you how to get started and actually doing it. So.
Yeah, awesome. So with your business name, The Friendly Giant, how did you come up with that name? What's the story behind that one?
Oh man. So I'm, like I mentioned earlier, I'm 6'9", so I'm really tall, and I've always been tall my whole entire life. But when I was working in film, I worked on 13 feature films in the course of 2 years when I was working, and it was a whirlwind. But there was one show that I was working on in particular that had a director of photography who was from Australia, and he actually worked on the Lethal Weapon TV series that was on a while back. And I was on the lighting crew, and it was awesome. He would need something adjusted, and I could reach without having to get a ladder, like reach up and touch the ceiling or make an adjustment to the light really quick, and stuff. And so he just started saying like, "Oh, I love having a friendly giant around. Like, this is just awesome." And so every time he needed something, he's like, "Where's my friendly giant? Like, I need my friendly giant to do this or that." And after that, after that show was finished, every other set that I went on, there was always somebody. There's always like carryover from crew to crew. You work with a lot of the same people, and so people are like, "Oh, the Friendly Giant's on this shoot, awesome!" Right? So when it came time to like create an LLC and make a name for my company and all that kind of stuff, like I was trying to figure out what it was, and that was just the first thought. I'm like, Friendly Giant Films, because I do, I work on storytelling, but I also do awesome videos and stuff to put those stories into a thing that you can use all the time. It goes to work for you all day, that kind of thing. So that's where it came from.
Got you. Awesome. I love it. Awesome. So with that, a question I like to ask as well too is, based on your whole journey to where you've kind of created your successful business, you're doing really big things out there. What would you say is the one core trait that's really changed the game for you, for everything you would say that's kind of led you here? That one thing. I know there's quite a few, there might be quite a few, but if you had to narrow it down to one thing, what would you say is the one thing that's gotten you to where you are today?
I think the one thing that's got me to where I am today is taking action. Like, you're not waiting for everything to be perfect and everything to be all set up in order to move forward. Is when I have an idea or a thought process that leads towards an offer or whatever it is, I actively pursue it and see. And I've sold courses before I actually had the course all put together, right? It's all been taking action, because like I said, if you don't do it, you don't progress yourself. You don't make yourself uncomfortable, all those kinds of things. You don't progress as an individual, but also as a business owner. If you stay comfortable, you're not going to be in business for very long. So for me, it would be taking action and just putting things to work, as opposed to getting information overload and not doing something, or being stuck in that wanting to have everything perfect and everything in place before you decide to go public with something. Or, that is what's got me the most traction and the most momentum in a really quick way.
Yeah, love it. And I definitely believe the same thing as well too. Just like even with this show here, I'm kind of losing my voice because I've interviewed like so many people so far already. But I had the idea for putting this show together last week. And I'm pretty busy already as it is. And I'm like, well, how am I going to make this happen? But I just knew that, hey, if I don't execute on this idea and take action and figure out how do I get this done, I know that it'll be one of those dreams, and it'll be delayed in a sense. So I quickly just said, I'll just get the first interview done. And once I get the first one done, second, third, fourth, and boom, off to the races. But I definitely believe action is the key to just making things happen and really getting what you want out of life. Well, I guess with that, Nick, hey, thank you so much. Now, I guess I know you mentioned the resource as far as the downloadable steps someone could do to
Yeah.
craft this story. What's the best way to reach out to you? Do you have any other ways to reach out?
Yeah, there's the website, friendlygiantfilms.com, but also I'm really active on Facebook and Instagram. I have a Nic Fitzgerald entrepreneur page where I go live almost every day and just do some sort of teaching moment or, some insights on storytelling and video and just entrepreneurship in general. That's where I spend a lot of my time, and you can get a hold of me pretty quickly through that page. But social media and all that stuff is where I like to spend a lot of time as well, because like we connected through it and we connected really fast, and that's the quickest way to be able to build connections and stuff. So definitely through Facebook and the website.
Yeah, appreciate it, guys. Okay, so and if you're listening to this on the replay as well, too, I will have the links to all of the resources Nick shared on here. So if you like what he shared with you, and if you want to take the next step, be sure to check out some of his trainings and follow him, see what he's up to on our social media. Well, with that being said, Nick, appreciate you stopping by today. I guess before we end, do you have any final thoughts to share?
The only thing I can say is that you have the stories, powerful stories in you right now. And there are people searching for your voice right now. They might not know that they're searching for your voice specifically, but when they hear it, it'll change their lives. They'll recognize it and it'll change their lives. So if there's anything, if you've got nothing out of anything else that we talked about today, if you take action and just do whatever that is, publishing, creating your offers, just get things done and get things going, because you will change your life and your business in a positive way, but the people that you serve will benefit from it now, as opposed to being in the dark for longer while they wait for you to perfect the message. So just do it.
Awesome, powerful message. Well, again, thank you so much for being here, and we will be in touch, okay?
All right. Thank you very much. It's great to be here.
Awesome, enjoy.